When the dry season swept through the southern African savannah, the earth cracked open like unhealed wounds. The last sources of water vanished under the scorching sun. The winds carried only dust and the sighs of life slowly retreating. Amid the parched, fractured land, a pair of lions, male and female, lay close together. They were once the rulers of this place, hunting side by side under fiery skies, their roars shaking the tall grasses. But today, there was nothing left to roar for, only thirst and hunger and a heavy silence. The male lifted his head, gazing far into the distance, as if searching for something on the horizon. The female lay flat on the ground, her cheek pressed against the barren earth, her breaths faint, as if fading. Without a signal, without argument, they rose. They left everything behind, carrying only their survival instincts, their resilience, and a tiny life not yet fully formed. The journey began, a path where every step was a choice between survival or dissolving into the silence of the wilderness. On the first night, they found no shelter. Cold winds slipped through their matted fur, stinging wounds still raw from the painful departure from their old territory. Rudo, the male lion, moved slowly, each step heavy as if burdened by the dark memories of failed hunts. Nyah trailed behind, her belly beginning to swell unnaturally. But in this life-or-death migration, there was no room for weakness. Once, they had to cross the territory of a hyena clan. Cackling laughter echoed in the darkness, like hundreds of needles piercing their nerves. Rudo roared, blood seeping from a bite on his shoulder, yet he did not retreat, standing firm in front of Nyah. The next day, they reached a dried-up river, its waters reduced to murky puddles of mud. Nyah collapsed, barely able to stand. Rudo turned back, his eyes no longer those of a wild beast, but of a husband unwilling to let his mate fall. And then, when all hope seemed lost, they saw a light. Not of nature, the distant glow of a patrol vehicle's headlights. The patrol vehicle rolled slowly through the forest's edge, leaving a faint trail of dust suspended in the golden afternoon light. In the driver's seat, Jonas, an experienced ranger, suddenly paused. "Hold on," Amari whispered, her eyes glued to the thermal screen. Something was moving in the bushes, not an antelope, not a cheetah, something larger, quieter, carrying an eerie silence. From the shadows, two pairs of eyes emerged, deep amber, profound, and heartbreakingly weary. Rudo stood there, just meters away, neither roaring nor fleeing. Nyah lay behind him, panting, her eyes shimmering with moisture. Both were exhausted, but kept their distance. No one moved. No explanation was needed. In that fleeting moment, lion and human locked eyes, not as enemies, but as two beings drifting toward the edge of survival. From that day, Mikado was no longer the same. A new life quietly seeped into every blade of grass, every trail, every somber morning. Jonas still drove the same patrol route, but his eyes always searched the grassy edge where the lions rested. He said nothing, only gripped the steering wheel tighter. Amari, each time she spotted fresh paw prints in the sand, felt her heart race. Not from fear, but from hope. Hope that they were still there, still surviving. Nyah moved slowly, eating little. Rudo never left her side. Each time the patrol vehicle approached, he growled softly, not a threat, but a plea. "Please, leave us be." Amari meticulously noted every small change in her notebook, every gentle lick, every shift in Nyah's position as she lay. One afternoon, as the sunset stretched across the golden savannah, Jonas saw Nyah lying on her side, her paw resting on her swollen belly. No one spoke, but all understood. A new life was forming. Then the rains came, like a final test, not just for the land, but for the tiny life growing in silence. The first rain of the season poured over Mikado like a heavy prelude. The earth softened, and the scent of wet grass awakened distant memories of the savannah. Nyah curled up under an old tree, her back soaked, her breaths uneven. The contractions began, not intense but steady, like distant drums heralding something sacred. Rudo stayed by her side. Though his thick mane was drenched, he stood as a silent wall between Nyah and the world. Each time she whimpered, he lowered his head, pressing his forehead to her belly, quietly sharing her pain. From the lookout post, Amari watched through binoculars. She knew the moment was near. She wrote in her notebook, "Day 103, rain. Lioness not eating, eyes closed, heartbeat fast." But the silence shattered as the pains grew fiercer. The question loomed. Should they intervene, or let nature decide? On day 105, Nyah lay limp in the soaked grass. The pain persisted. Her legs trembled, her breaths short. Each contraction brought a faint whimper, a desperate call in the wilderness. Rudo paced around her, helpless. His mane bristled, his eyes tense with unspoken fear. "We have to do something," Amari whispered. "Intervening now could kill both mother and cub," Jonas replied, his eyes fixed on the lions. In that moment, the boundary between human and nature dissolved. They had to choose, stand by and watch, or intervene with courage and a shot of hope. The patrol vehicle stopped less than 30 meters from the lions. No sound but the wind and the pounding of two human hearts. Jonas opened the driver's door, stepping out slowly. His eyes locked with Rudo's. The male lion turned, growling softly. But the growl wasn't angry. It was a question. "What will you do?" Amari followed, carrying a medical kit. A small syringe, the last hope to help Nyah through her labor. Rudo stepped forward, growling again, but then he stood still. Amari whispered something inaudible. Nyah closed her eyes, not from pain, but as if in agreement. Amari knelt, gently touched Nyah's belly, administered the injection, and stepped back. Now they could only wait and hope. 2 hours after the injection, the Mikado savannah fell eerily still. The wind stopped. The clouds darkened as if nature itself held its breath. And then, a miracle unfolded. A soft, prolonged moan, a full-body shudder. Amid the wet grass, a tiny life emerged, drenched, trembling, eyes still closed. Mosey was born. Rudo was the first to approach. He didn't roar or bellow. He simply lowered his head and gently licked the quivering little body. Nyah opened her eyes. Though weak, her gaze was warm enough to envelop Mosey. She stretched her neck, pressing her body to her cub, as if all the pain she'd endured was for this moment. From a distance, Jonas stood frozen. Amari shed tears. No one spoke. Words weren't needed. A miracle had occurred. No fireworks, no applause, just life. But the miracle didn't end there. The most sacred thing wasn't the birth, but witnessing that life grow day by day. In the days after the birth, the Mikado savannah softened. The sun was less harsh, and the wind carried the scent of fresh grass sprouting after the rain. Mosey, the lion cub, took his first wobbly steps. His legs still trembled, but each stumble was met with a gentle nudge from Rudo's nose or a tender lick from Nyah. Jonas and Amari watched from afar. They recorded every moment. Mosey's first venture from the grass, his first glance at the patrol vehicle's lights, his first roar, a faint, clumsy sound, but brimming with wild instinct. Rudo no longer growled warnings at their approach. He stood calm, silent, like a father who knew his family was watched not with threat, but with love. Mosey grew under his mother's tender gaze, in his father's mighty shadow, and amid the quiet presence of humans who chose life. Time passed. The reins returned, not as a challenge, but as part of life's rhythm. Mosey no longer wobbled, he ran faster, roared louder, yet he still looked back for his mother. Rudo stood like a pillar in the savannah, while Nyah, her eyes tinged with weariness, watched her cub's every step with gentle care. Evening fell over the Mikado savannah. The sun dipped behind the trees, leaving a streak of orange and red across the sky. A gentle breeze swept through the grass, carrying the scent of damp earth and the sound of life continuing. Jonas and Amari no longer needed binoculars. The sight of three shadows, one large, one small, one medium, standing on the grassy slope was enough to know they were still there, still alive, still believing. No thanks were spoken, but each time the patrol vehicle passed, Rudo turned to watch. Nyah softly closed her eyes, and Mosey, though beginning to resemble a young lion, still paused at times, as if to remember the faces of the humans who chose to intervene at the right moment with all their heart. In the fragile boundary between human and nature, sometimes silent love is what creates the greatest miracles.